Let us continue with the topic. We have discussed about biomagnification in detail in the ecology topic itself, and I have given the definition in the previous video. Now in this video, let us discuss about the famous case studies regarding biomagnification. Right now, before going to the case study, I will brush up the definition of biomagnification. The phenomenon through which certain pollutants get accumulated in tissues in increasing concentration along the food chain is called biomagnification. Right now I will summarize this point. See here, biomagnification. Now the pollutants that get accumulated are non-biodegradable, right, and they accumulate in the fat tissues of the organisms. The pollutants that accumulate are non-biodegradable. I'll write the crux point only, right? And they accumulate in fat tissues. Now let us see the first case study, famous one, DDT insecticide biomagnification. Now what is DDT? Dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane. I'll write the full form here, right? Dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane. Now, DDT is an insecticide which is banned in most of the countries. Why it is banned? Now, in 1992, in Michigan Lake of North America, this DDT was sprayed to kill mosquitoes in order to eliminate malaria. Right? In 1992, in Michigan Lake, this DDT was sprayed to kill mosquitoes in order to eliminate malaria. Now what happened due to this? After 20 years, it was found that the number of pelican birds, which is significant to this Michigan Lake, are decreasing very rapidly, it seems. Why? What happened? Now see here, the pelican birds which are specific to Michigan Lake, their population is decreasing rapidly, it seems. Why? What happened? Now see here, the DDT was sprayed in this lake in order to kill mosquitoes. Now this DDT entered the body of pelican birds through biomagnification, and due to this, what happened? The eggs laid down by the pelican birds are having very thin shells. The eggs laid down by pelican birds are having very thin shells. Now due to this thin shells, what having? Before hatching, the eggs are being broken down, so automatically the population of birds are decreased. So due to this DDT was banned. Now this is one more important case study, right? Once it was asked in your 2014 Service Commission examination, right? Focus on this. Let us go to the next case study, second one. Already we have discussed this case study in environmental degradation and pollution, I mean in the previous videos. Now diclofenac biomagnification. Now what is this diclofenac biomagnification? This is a medicine used for inflammatory diseases, fever and pain, now which is widely used in India right in the beginnings of 1990. This is an anti-inflammatory medicine, right, which is used for, or antipyretic, you can speak it as anti-inflammatory, antipyretic. Antipyretic means which decrease down your fever, anti-inflammatory means which decrease down your pain. Now see here, this drug is proved to be fatal for vultures, it seems, because see here, as this diclofenac is consumed by animals, now this amount of diclofenac through accumulation, through increase in concentration along the food chain, biomagnification happens. Now due to this, kidney failures has been happening. Done. Now see here, I will explain it in detail. Now this diclofenac is given to animals, and in this animals the diclofenac concentration is being increased due to biomagnification, and after their death, these animals, these corpusses are eaten by vultures, and this diclofenac is entering into the body of vultures, which is causing kidney failures to the vultures. Now this is the correct point, right? Kidney failures to the vultures, right? Now so I'll summarize this points here. This diclofenac animals are taken by vultures, and due to this, kidney failure is happening in vultures. So due to this, what happened? This diclofenac is banned because the vulture population is being significantly decreasing. So Indian government have banned this diclofenac drug in the year 2006, right, and it is also banned in Nepal and Pakistan, right? And see here, there are vulture restaurants which provide diclofenac free meat to vultures. It is located in Maharashtra, Pune, and also in Punjab. We have discussed about this in the previous videos, right? Focus on this. This is one more important one, right? We'll go to the next case study. The next one is about endosulfan. Case study 3. Endosulfan. Now observe here, this endosulfan is a xenoestrogen. This endosulfan is a xenoestrogen. Now what is this endosulfan and how it is used? Now it is a synthetic substance which enhances the effect of estrogens, and it can act as endocrine disruptor, causing reproductive and developmental damage in both animals and humans, right? It became a highly controversial agrochemical due to its acute toxicity potential for bioaccumulation. Now see here, this endosulfan will enhance the effect of estrogens. Now what happened due to this? Due to this, reproductive and developmental changes disrupts reproductive and developmental changes disrupts. So I'm writing only the crux points here, right? Disrupts in humans and animals, right? Now see here, this endosulfan is used as agrochemical. Now as this agrochemical is sprayed on the plants, now it was taken by human beings, and this endosulfan will increase in concentration along the food chain through biomagnification. So what happened? This endosulfan is globally banned, and see here, this endosulfan was globally banned, and the initiative was taken in Stockholm Convention. Stockholm Convention. This is very important, right? Note this point, right? Stockholm Convention in 2011. A decision was taken to ban endosulfan in Stockholm Convention in 2011, right? And also immediately in India, endosulfan was also banned by Supreme Court of India, right? Now these are the three famous case studies. Now let us go to the next concept called eutrophication. Already we have discussed in detail in ecology, but I'll give the basics here, right? As regarding the continuation to water pollution, eutrophication, we have discussed in aquatic ecosystems, you might have remembered. Now what is eutrophication? Increase in concentration of nutrients in water by decomposition of organic materials is called eutrophication. Now I will summarize this. Increase in concentration of nutrients. Increase in concentration of nutrients in water due to decomposition of organic waste is called eutrophication. Now what happens due to this eutrophication? Due to the excess nutrients in the water, the growth of algae will increase. Algal blooms will happen, especially the blue-green algae. Such algal blooms may cover all the water surface and cause deficiency of oxygen in water. It leads to the decrease in dissolved oxygen content in the water. We have discussed this DO, BOD, COD, all the things, yes. Now due to eutrophication, what happens? Your algal blooms will increase. So one example is blue-green algae. I'll write it as blue-green algae. Now due to this algal increase, what happens? It takes more oxygen. Due to this, the dissolved oxygen content in the water will be decreased. Now this happens. Now this is the major cause of eutrophication. Done. Already we have discussed about this. Now this content is enough for this. Now the next one is groundwater pollution. Now how this groundwater gets polluted, right? One more important case study, right? Now see here, I'll write down the point here. Already you said that about eutrophication. Now see here, we'll see about groundwater pollution. Now this groundwater gets polluted due to industrial waste and municipal waste. Then this is a general reason. Now what happens due to this pollution? Excess of nitrates in the drinking water reacts with hemoglobin and forms non-functional methemoglobin, which impairs your oxygen transport. Now this is called methemoglobinemia or blue baby syndrome. Now see here, I will join the points here. In air pollution, what you have seen, when carbon monoxide is more affinity than oxygen to hemoglobin. Now it attaches with hemoglobin to form carboxyhemoglobin that we have discussed in air pollution, and due to this what happens? Now hemoglobin is the main content for oxygen transport to all your living tissues. Now it will get impaired. Now in groundwater, what happens in groundwater pollution? Due to excess nitrates in the water. Now when it is taken up by human beings, what happens? It reacts with the hemoglobin to form methemoglobin. methemoglobin. Now due to this, what happens? Your hemoglobin is attached with nitrate ions, not with oxygen, so your oxygen transport will be decreased. Now this disease is called blue baby syndrome. Blue baby syndrome. Focus, this is very important, focus on this. Now this is due to air pollution. Now this is due to water pollution, right? Now blue baby syndrome is also called as methemoglobinemia. Methemoglobinemia, right, or blue baby syndrome. Now this is one effect due to groundwater pollution. Now the next one, cadmium pollution. Now cadmium in groundwater can cause a disease called ouch disease. Now once it was asked in your service commission examination, so that's why I'm discussing here. Cadmium in groundwater right can cause a disease called Itai disease. I'll write this, Itai disease. Itai disease, or it is also called as ouch disease. Ouch disease. Now what is this ouch disease? Now due to this disease, it causes painful bones and joints and cancer of liver and lungs, right? Painful bones and joints and cancer to liver and lungs is the main symptoms of this disease, right? Got the point? Yes. Now what will be the effects on human health? Now we have discussed these two types. Now see here, domestic sewage, when your surroundings are not very clean. Now what happened? The first basic disease is cholera. Now see here in Delhi, this is what happened due to unhygienicness and also the usage of more antibiotics. A superbug is formed, right? Now E. coli have changed its form and it formed as superbug, right? Now see here, most of your Delhiites since 3 years back have suffered with this motions, right? Now this is a very important factor where you have to reduce your antibiotics and also your surroundings must be clean, right? Cholera, amoebiasis, motions means amoebiasis, typhoid, all these causes due to filthy surrounding conditions. Now excessive fluorine in water also causes of painful bones and joints, right? Excessive fluorine in water also causes painful joints. Now see here, one more important point of this groundwater pollution is chronic exposure to arsenic. When you are exposed to arsenic for a long time, chronic means long time, acute means short time, you are caused with a disease called Blackfoot disease. Chronic exposure to arsenic in water, the disease called Blackfoot disease occurs in human beings, right? Blackfoot disease, focus on this. Now see here, the normal terms, you'll get diarrhea, neuritis and hyperkeratosis, also lung and skin cancer. Now this is famous one, the remaining things are common for all the diseases, right? Now let us discuss the next most important. Now how to get rid of these diseases? The only thing is you have to control measures for water pollution. What are the control measures that you take for water pollution, right? Now the first, I'll write down the point here, control measures for water pollution. Now what are the techniques that you use for controlling water pollution? Right now, the first one, normal technique what you use, using water hyacinth, using water hyacinth. Now what is this water hyacinth? Now this is important one, focus on this. Now water hyacinth is extremely efficient in absorbing of concentrated dissolved nutrients from water which it leaves. Now water hyacinth acts as efficient absorber, I'll write the crux point here, of concentrated minerals, nutrients in water, so which helps to reduce your water pollution, right? And let us discuss about the chemical methods. Okay, now what are the chemical methods? The first one is ion exchange method. Now what is this ion exchange method? Now see here, it is an reversible reaction where an iron from solution is exchanged for a similar charged ion attached to an immobile solid particle which is either naturally occurring in organic zeolite or synthetically produced organic resins. Now this is the crux of ion exchange. Now see here, I will summarize this point into one crisp point. Now see here, ion exchange, your iron from solution is exchanged with, it is a reversible reaction, exchanged with a similar charged ion attached to an immobile solid particle, right? Now what is this immobile solid particle? Which is called zeolite, right? Zeolite or synthetically produced resins. Now see here, this iron will get attached to the zeolite and excessive iron is removed from the water. Now this is called ion exchange method, right? Done. The next one is reverse osmosis. Now what is reverse osmosis? It involves purification of water with semi-permeable membrane, Now what is the use of this semi-permeable membrane? Let me know that first. Now this semi-permeable membrane is used for pre-treatment steps for deionization systems. Now this semi-permeable membrane will remove water bacteria, organisms, and the bacteria, the organisms which affect your health, and silica, and reduce the dissolved salt content by greater than 95%, right? Now it removes bacteria, some organisms, silica, and also the dissolved salts up to an extent of 95%. Right? Reverse osmosis process. Now the next one is precipitation. Now what is this precipitation? Not likewise normally you discussed in ecology, right? Now this process transforms dissolved contaminants into insoluble solid. Now see here, this dissolved contaminants will be converted to insoluble solids. Insoluble solid. Now this is the process, and by destabilizing them and chemically precipitating them, an accumulated precipitated material can be either removed by gravity or by filtration. Now see here, they are made to insoluble solids and they are heavier. They will settle down at the bottom and these settled down particles will be removed by filtration, right? Easy process, right? Filtration. Now the next one is a very important one. Once it was asked in the examination also. 4R concept of water. 4R concept of water. Now what is this 4R concept of water? Recycling. Now I'll write the full form, right? Recycling, renovation, recharge, and reuse concept. Now the wastewater consisting of domestic sewage, industrial effluents, thermal and radioactive pollutants receive some sort of treatment before mixing into water. Now this concept is called 4R concept of water. Now before you leave into the water bodies, now you have to remove the radioactive pollutants and the pollutants which cause harmful to the aquatic ecosystems, and then you release them into the water, and that concept is called 4R concept of water. Now let us discuss about the next concept called water quality improvement. Water quality improvement. The next concept what we will deal is water quality improvement. Now see here, how will you improve this water quality improvement? Already we have discussed in general in the previous thing, that is called 4R concept. Apart from this, they are treated with effluent treated plant. We'll call it as ETP, effluent treated plants. Now prior to disposal of this water into the water bodies, right? Now generally what we will do in this effluent treated plants, there are three treatments. One is primary treatment, next one is secondary treatment, and the third one is tertiary treatment. Now what you will do in primary treatment, let us know in this. In primary treatment, now this is a physical process which involves removal of large debris, right? You will remove the large debris in primary treatment. How you will remove this large debris? By usage of sedimentation tanks or clarifiers, right? By using clarifiers you remove this large debris. Now what you will do in secondary treatment? Now in this treatment, the pumped water, the waste water is pumped into stabilization or oxidation ponds where microorganisms oxides its organic matter, right? Now in this process carbon dioxide will be released and also a sludge will be removed. Am I right or wrong? Now see here, in secondary treatment what happens? These waste water is pumped into stabilization ponds or oxidation ponds. Now due to this what happens? Now see here, in this stabilization there are microorganisms, or oxidation pond there are microorganisms. They oxides the organic matter, and as a result carbon dioxide is released, right? And also sludge, the waste sludge is released. Now this carbon dioxide and sludge, right, will be removed in this secondary treatment. Now see here, algae grown in the upper zone of wastewater provide carbon dioxide which further oxidizes the sludge, it seems. Now these both are called biosolids. Biosolids. Done. Now what happens in the tertiary treatment? Next the water will be passed on to the tertiary treatment. Now these steps involve chemical oxidation. Chemical oxidation of water by chlorine, percolate salts, UV treatment, right? Ozonization. Now these are common techniques that everybody know about this. Ion exchange method, what we have discussed here, your reverse osmosis, your precipitation, coagulation, all this will be done in tertiary treatment, right? Now after tertiary treatment the water can be used, right? Now the water quality is improved. Done. Now this is the process of water quality improvement. Now observe here in secondary treatment, right? Now this secondary treatment, after release of carbon dioxide and sludge, this carbon dioxide is removed and also the sludge also is removed. Now this carbon dioxide can be used by algae which are grown on the upper zone of the water, right? Done. This is the point. Thank you.